It's a strange thing, isn't it? We spend our lives chasing connection, yearning for that profound sense of belonging. We write poems, sing songs, and build entire industries around the pursuit of love. Yet, when it comes to the actual dynamics of relationships, what truly drives our decisions, our anxieties, our most desperate acts, it's rarely the love itself. More often than not, it's the chilling, ever-present fear of losing it. The dread of that hollow space where connection used to be. We like to think of ourselves as rational beings driven by positive desires. We want to be loved, to be cherished, to be secure, but beneath the surface of conscious intent, a more primal force is at play. It's the deep-seated aversion to loss, a powerful psychological engine that often dictates our behavior more than any attraction. Think about it. When was the last time you heard someone say, "I'm so excited about the possibility of finding someone to share my life with"? It's far more common to hear, "I'm terrified of being alone," or "I can't bear the thought of him leaving." This isn't just a semantic difference. It points to a fundamental asymmetry in our emotional landscape. We're not just seeking gain, we are actively trying to avoid pain. This is the illusion we live by, that our pursuit of love is a proactive, forward-moving quest. We believe we are building, expanding, growing. We see ourselves as adventurers charting unknown territories, hoping to discover a hidden treasure. But often, we're more like sentinels standing guard over a fragile kingdom, constantly scanning the horizon for approaching threats. The perceived threat of loss is far more potent, far more motivating, than the abstract promise of future love. Researchers have explored this concept extensively, noting that the prospect of pain often carries more psychological weight than an equivalent amount of pleasure. Behavioral economists call this lossaversion, and its impact on our relationships is profound. It's not that love isn't desired, but the fear of its absence casts a long, dark shadow, distorting our perceptions and driving us to actions we might not otherwise take. The hidden mechanism at play here is a complex interplay of attention, investment, and perceived value, all amplified by this aversion to loss. Consider the simple act of being left on read. It's a minor inconvenience in the grand scheme of life, yet for many it triggers a disproportionate wave of anxiety. Why? Because it represents a subtle withdrawal of attention, a potential signal of disinterest, and, crucially, the dawning realization that the investment, the time, the emotional energy might be vanishing into thin air. The perceived value of the interaction, and by extension, the potential relationship, plummets. This isn't necessarily about the other person's intent. It's about our internal interpretation filtered through the lens of potential loss. When someone leans in, physically or emotionally, we perceive that as an investment, a validation. It increases their perceived value in our eyes. Conversely, when they pull away, even slightly, it feels like a withdrawal. It signals a shift in the delicate balance of attention and investment. This is where the core sequence of relationship dynamics often unfolds. A behavior occurs, perhaps a late reply, a canceled plan, a withdrawn compliment. This behavior is then interpreted as a hidden signal, not just of the act itself, but of something larger, a potential decrease in interest, a wavering commitment. This signal triggers a psychological effect, anxiety, insecurity, a fear of abandonment. The consequence: we often react by trying to regain control, to secure the investment, to prevent the loss. We might become more attentive, more accommodating, or conversely, more demanding, attempting to force a re-engagement. This desperate attempt to avert perceived loss can ironically push the very outcome we fear. The alternative, of course, is to shift our mindset. Instead of seeking validation from external cues, we can learn to understand our own position. This means recognizing that our sense of self-worth shouldn't be solely dependent on another person's attention or their continued presence in our lives. It's about building an internal reservoir of value, independent of the fluctuating dynamics of a relationship. When we are not terrified of losing someone, our interactions change. We can be more authentic, less needy, and paradoxically more attractive. We move from a position of scarcity, driven by fear, to one of abundance, grounded in self-possession. This shift isn't about becoming cold or unfeeling. It's about recalibrating our understanding of what constitutes a healthy connection. True connection is built on mutual investment and genuine appreciation, not on a frantic effort to prevent an imagined departure. When we are constantly afraid of losing, we give the other person an unintended form of power. Their actions, however small, become seismic events in our emotional world. We are essentially outsourcing our peace of mind. So, how do we begin to reclaim that peace? How do we disentangle our desire for love from the paralyzing fear of its absence? The actionable step, something you can implement within the next 24 to 48 hours, is simple yet profound. Identify one instance where you're performing an action driven by the fear of losing someone or something. It could be sending that extra text, agreeing to something you don't want to do, or constantly checking your phone for a response. Once identified, consciously choose not to perform that action. Instead, use that energy to focus on a task that brings you genuine satisfaction, or to simply sit with your own thoughts, observing the anxiety without acting on it. This small act of resistance against the fear of loss is the first step towards building a more secure, authentic, and ultimately more loving internal world. It's about realizing that true security doesn't come from clinging tighter, but from building a foundation so strong within yourself that you are not defined by what you might lose.